to remember about Arctic searches is the search window isn't very long. A matter of weeks, really, 6 to 8 at the most, between when the old ice retreats and the new ice starts to form. So those who are searching, hunting for the historic Franklin ships, the Erebus and Terror, are already facing a clock that's winding down. We're at McClintock Point. It's not far from where the Franklin ships were last spotted. And we've come here to begin our check on how the search is going. In May 1845, Franklin and his 2 ships left England. In July, they stopped briefly in Greenland. By August, the ships reached Baffin Bay. Moving on, the expedition spent the winter on Beechey Island. And then it's presumed that in 1846, the ships sailed down to King William Island. There they got trapped in the ice. In April 1848, crew members abandoned the ships and set out on foot, heading south. None of them lived. According to Inuit testimony, one ship was spotted west of King William Island, the other farther south. These are the locations where Parks Canada is searching. There it is, the search headquarters for the past few weeks, the Canadian Coast Guard vessel Sir Wilfrid Laurier. Another day searching for the Franklin ships. The wind here bites, and Arctic waves rock us back and forth on this small research boat just launched from the Coast Guard ship. But it isn't what's up here that matters, it's what's down there. So all eyes are on this sonar screen, as hour by hour it reveals the mysteries of an uncharted ocean floor.
Speaking about those deep scours or furrows on the mud bottom.
Ryan Harris is the lead underwater archaeologist for Parks Canada. He knows every hour counts.
Yeah.
Now, you spent a lot of time looking at that monitor these past few weeks. Have you seen anything that's made you pause and go back and look at it again?
We routinely take second looks at small features, but nothing that really has got me excited by any means.
With the help of Canada's Coast Guard and other partners on this expedition, Ryan and his crew have been focusing on the vast waters of Victoria and Alexandra Straits. The Erebus and Terror are here somewhere, or at least what's left of them. Both ships were state-of-the-art for their time, reinforced especially for the Arctic. The last known location of the ships was found in this letter left by Franklin's crew. The final coordinates just north of King William Island. But possibly the most stunning discovery, when the first 3 Franklin crew members to die on the expedition were dug up on Beechey Island, where they'd spent their first winter. Anthropologist Owen Beattie described this site as the final moments of life, literally frozen on their faces. As for Erebus and Terror, there's been no trace of them, as though they simply vanished. On this day, we're out on Erebus Bay. That's on the northwest tip of King William Island. What I find amazing is here we are, 160 odd years later. There have been a number of, quite a few different search groups that have gone through this area, and yet they're still finding new stuff.
Absolutely, there's a lot of material here.
We head out with archaeologists Doug Stenton and Bob Park.
Here's a small bone here.
As they comb the shoreline, looking for remnants of Franklin's crew.
From one of the long bones probably in your hand or foot. And it's embedded.
Today, some success. They found several small items, a tooth, a button, and bones.
See, here's another piece. Here's a piece of bone right here, Peter. See?
Oh yeah. Where is it?
I don't know. It's looking a little bit like it could be a fibula.
What drives you guys on this stuff? Why do you do it? Why do you look for this?
Well, for me, it's such a big part of Canadian identity, part of our history, and there still is so many questions, things we don't know yet about what really transpired, what really happened. And I think any work that we can do to try and get more information to help answer some of those questions, I think it's important that we do that. These sites are important to Canada, and I think it's well worth the time and effort to continue to study these sites and improve our understanding of what took place.
Now, many items have been found on these shores in the past, so it doesn't take long before I'm also hooked on the search. Is a toothbrush. Yeah, here where the
bristles would be.
The bristles would be.
Yeah.
And it's of that period.
Yeah, for sure. Beautiful. Well done. You want to stay longer, Peter? Have some fun.
Yeah. Back to the water now and the search for the ships. If they're found, this is what will find them. A side scan sonar lowered into the water, dragged along the seafloor, sending sound signals that echo back acoustic shadows below, painting the first picture of this sea floor.
Gotta change a parameter up here.
In real time, Ryan watches that image, staring at those orange lines, looking for a strange angle, a shape, anything. There's only so much one person can keep looking at without starting to drift, you know, in their attention.
Yeah, and we're actually afraid that after looking at the screen for 12 or 14 hours or more that you're going to doze off and miss something or worse, maybe hit the seafloor with the sonar. So sometimes catching yourself kind of on the edge.
But these guys know how to find a prize. 2 years ago, Ryan's crew found HMS Investigator, one of the dozens of ships sent to rescue Franklin's crew. It too got stranded in the ice. The searchers found it standing upright on the ocean floor. Cold waters, low light, and little oxygen meant the wreck was well preserved. A musket and shoes were found on the ship's deck. This is what gives Parks Canada optimism. You ever think back to that moment where you saw it? I mean, for all the hours you've looked at screens on various searches, is that the big one so far, investigating?
Yes, absolutely. I hope I have an opportunity to revisit a moment like that, but yeah, I'll always look back on that moment with almost disbelief that we got so lucky.
The search has been going on for a little over 2 weeks now, and the sonar images are starting to reveal something pretty interesting. That on the sea floor there are deep gouges caused by the ice. Those gouges could be hundreds, if not thousands of years old, but here's the issue. If they're not that old, if they're only, say, 160 years old, what could those deep gouges caused by the ice dragging across the sea floor have done to wooden sailing ships like the Erebus and Terror?
These measure about 4 meters in depth. Some of them are 50, 60, 80 meters across, right. Just furrowing the seafloor. Any wooden vessel that would get in the way of one of these ice keels scouring the bottom would be largely obliterated.
Arctic nights are starting to creep back onto the clock here. It's past 9 now, but Ryan squeezes in one last shift and readies a boat for surveying.
Okay, take up slack.
Another sonar is dropped into the cold waters.
Take up slack.
The scanning of these waters isn't just about finding the Franklin ships. Less than 2% of this area has been charted to modern standards. In many ways, it's the great unknown. So below deck, 2 hydrographers work, drafting detailed underwater maps for the first time. In just 2 weeks, they've had remarkable success. They've mapped out a new passage that will reduce sailing time here by 6 hours. It will create a new deep water route across the Arctic, a faster Northwest Passage.
We have charts covering the Arctic, but a vast amount of the area on those charts doesn't have any sounding data whatsoever. So the work that we're doing, particularly in this area, is essentially cutting new roads through the Arctic and building upon these roads, widening them so we can get large ships through safely.
In many ways, that's exactly what Sir John Franklin himself was searching for, a new, safe, and viable route to the Pacific. In 1845, it would have redefined the world. Today, it could redefine the future of Canada's North. Still, the ultimate prize right now is finding at least one of those famous wrecks. The cold and choppy Arctic waters are moving in. Ryan is seizing every chance he can to search.
But are you still as confident as you've ever been in terms of what could happen?
Well, we've always looked at it as a significant undertaking that was going to require perseverance and commitment. And the government has I think, expanded upon that commitment, and it might not happen tomorrow, it might not happen next week, but I think it will happen in the next few years, and I just hope that we're a part of it.
When we come back, what if they find Erebus and Terror? What happens then? Well, now to one of those big questions about the search for the Franklin ships. What if they find Erebus and Terror? What happens then? Well, to try and answer that question, the chief underwater archaeologist for Parks Canada, Marc-Andre Bernier. What if they find it? What happens then?
Well, then we switch gears. The real archaeological work actually starts. The first thing to do would be to confirm the find. Obviously, if we find a target, then we have to confirm it. Now, how do we do that? It all depends where it is, what depth, in what state it is it well preserved or not. So basically we have a number of scenarios where we either send divers, send an ROV, a little robot, manned from the surface or operated from the surface to get the first images. And then to confirm, and that would be relatively, depending on the state of the find, we know about the ships, we know how they were built, so we can actually, we're confident to be able to confirm that fairly quickly. Now,
we all know they were Royal Navy vessels, yes. British vessels. Is there any issue at this point about the British?
No, we have a memorandum of understanding with them. The ownership remains to the British, it's their ships, but then custodianship of the vessels would fall upon the Canadian government.
Now, if they were found and yes. relatively intact, is there any possibility that they would try to be raised?
Well, that's a question that comes often. That's one we had for investigator. You know, are the ships going to be raised? I mean, there's a number of variables there, but what we tried to do is to try to study them first and leave them where they are. There is what we call a sense of the place, and a lot of the historical significance comes from the place where it lies. It is a story. This is where it was lost. In a way, men were lost in this expedition. We see it as it belongs to the place. Now, obviously, there are some examples, and we've done it ourselves, where we bring the ships up to the surface. It's very costly. Everything that comes from underwater, there's a cost. And on Investigator, what we did was we brought some artifacts to show and to tell the story, help tell the story, and they were, in our eyes, threatened. So there's a number of variables. That wouldn't be the next step. The next step would be, okay, what do we have? now that we have something, what does it consist of? What's the integrity of the site? What is the potential for artifacts? What are the impacts, the threats, environmental threats that are pending upon the site? So we're trying to evaluate that, and that's the same scenario that we had with investigators. What do we have? And then, only then can we talk about, okay, what do we do with this? So it would be quite exciting.
In a word, are you confident?
What I'm seeing here with the efforts being deployed by everybody, you know, we're always hopeful, because if not, we wouldn't try to find them. So, you know, it's a matter of time, and what we have this year is more time than we've ever had. So let's hope for the best.
All right. Thanks very much. And that wraps up our special first night coverage of the Franklin Expedition Search for the Ships. We'll see you again tomorrow.